Hello. Today I'm going to read you the Proclamation of the Convention to the French people. Essentially, what's happened here is the National Convention has tried and convicted King Louis XVI of treason, and they execute him via the guillotine. And what they realize after they've done this is that many or most of the French people look up to the king, or looked up to the king, saw him as a father figure. Yes, they were angry at him. Yes, they were hungry. They wanted him to change his practices and be a better king. But they truly did look up to this guy and thought of him as a father figure. And so when he's executed, this helps begin the counter-revolution against the National Convention. And this, along with the National Convention, also heavily discriminates against the Catholic Church. In 1792, the Catholic Church was banned in France. And between the Catholic Church being banned and the king losing his head, the two structures that your common French person, particularly your peasant, found most important were taken away by the government. And this starts the counter-revolution. So the National Convention, who's killed the king and is glad that he's dead, tries to, in this press release, this statement to the French people, tries to couch the execution of the king in terms of liberty. And they're going to try to not only explain that his execution was an act of liberty and justice, but they're also going to try to get the French people to ferret out the people against the government in their own neighborhoods. Okay, so here we go. Citizens, the tyrant is no more. Oh, by the way, once again, Aspects of Western Civilization by Perry M. Rogers, great book. That's my source. Citizens, the tyrant is no more. For a long time, the cries of the victims, whom war and domestic dissensions have spread over France and Europe, loudly protested his existence. He has paid his penalty, and only acclamations for the Republic and for liberty have been heard from the people. We've had to combat inveterate prejudices and the superstition of centuries concerning monarchy. Involuntary uncertainties and inevitable disturbances always accompany great changes and revolutions as profound as ours. This political crisis has suddenly surrounded us with contradictions and tumults. So in this first paragraph, they're saying essentially, everybody's happy the king is dead, which they're not. And that people can't help themselves but to sort of engage in these tumults that are happening. So these riots, this counter-revolution that's now breaking out because of the king's death is almost not even the fault of the people. They can't help it because these kinds of disturbances always surround a revolution as profound and important as the one the National Convention has unleashed. So already you can see doublespeak here, essentially. Redefining the situation in terms that is most useful for the National Convention. So moving on. Paragraph 2. But the cause has ceased. You know, the cause of all these problems was this king, and now he's dead. And the motives have disappeared. Respect for liberty of opinion must cause these tumultuous scenes to be forgotten. Only the good which they have produced through the death of the tyrant and of tyranny now remains. And this judgment belongs in its entirety to each of us, just as it belongs to the entire nation. So, the king is dead. Therefore, all of the riots and revolutions should be dead with him, because he, of course, was the cause, according to this document. And 3, not just the National Convention has killed the king, but everybody's killed the king. We're going to share the responsibility for this act, and therefore you've done it too, just like us, so don't be so upset and riotous about it. The National Convention and the French people are now to have only one mind, only one sentiment, that of liberty and civic fraternity. So you can only think of one thing: liberty, freedom. Freedom means thinking one thing. Now, above all, we need peace in the interior of the Republic and the most active surveillance of the domestic enemies of liberty. Never did circumstances more urgently require of all citizens the sacrifice of their passions and their personal opinions concerning the act of national justice which has just been effected. Today, the French people can have no other passion than that for liberty. Okay, so you can only have one mind, freedom. Freedom means one thing, having one mind, and believing in the brotherhood of your community. That's what civic fraternity is. And now the convention is saying that the citizens must sacrifice their personal opinions and emotions concerning the death of the king. And why must they sacrifice their opinions? So that they can have one passion, liberty. So essentially, the National Convention here is redefining liberty, which before this meant freedom. And now liberty is going to mean agreeing with the National Convention and not expressing any opinions against the death of the king. And this is going to lead directly to the reign of terror. Good?